Jordan, can I do a sound check? Are you able to hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I've got, I'm just connected by the audio with my phone because my internet's been very glitchy.
Sounds good. Glad you're able to connect. Can you,
Okay, thanks.
Can you see the screen too, or are you just audio connected?
I can see the screen and I think I'm showing up as a panelist.
Perfect.
So, okay, and I think the phone is connected with my being a panelist. So, yeah, I can see everything and I can hear through my phone. That way, if I drop off internet, I'll still be able to hear.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, looks like we have everybody. Did anybody hear from Dave Pastizo?
I do expect him to be able to attend today.
Okay, I'm gonna give him a couple more minutes then. How's the weather up there, Elaine? Are you guys having a snowpocalypse?
Well, Portland considers it a snowpocalypse. I don't think Bend would consider it a snowpocalypse. There was the tiniest bit of snow on the ground this morning, and of course, schools were delayed. I was like, really? But oh well. And it's all gone.
And Mayor, I believe the gang is all here.
All right, let's do it. So it's 4:02 and we'll call this special session of the Talent City Council to order on February 14th at 4:02. Roll call, please.
Councilor Clark,
Here.
Councilor Ponomarev,
Here.
Councilor Greider,
Here.
Councilor Pestizo,
Here.
Councilor Byers,
Here.
Councilor Perry Miller,
Here.
Mayor Ayersflood.
Here.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you so much, Lucero. Okay, item number 2 on the agenda is additions and corrections to the agenda. Are there any, does anybody have any? I do have a couple comments, but I want to make sure, checking in with anybody else. One is, I just want to clarify two points about the agenda tonight. One of them is that the purpose of this meeting is so that we can discuss the taxing district's feedback on the proposed urban renewal plan. And I noticed that we talked about that there is 4 options that are in the staff report, and there's a potential motion. But what I'd like to clarify is that tonight we'll be reviewing the jurisdiction's feedback, and then we will review the options and have an opportunity to ask questions about the options. But that we really want to consider and deliberate options after tomorrow night's public hearing. So there's really no action to take tonight. And I'm at this point in time, we'll be moving any potential motions to tomorrow night after a review of the potential options. Councilor Ponomarev?
Thank you, Mayor. So just to clarify, So does that mean we should save our deliberations for until after we hear from the public in the public hearing tomorrow as well?
Yep, that is the purpose of just making sure that we do that deliberation tomorrow night because it will be after the public hearing. So after we've had an opportunity to hear from our residents.
Okay, thank you.
And then the other question I have procedurally, and I'm glad you're here, Dave, or Elaine, either, or Jordan, is we do want to have an opportunity to review the options and just ask any technical questions about them tonight. Should we add that to the agenda as item 4 point? Review the options, review and discuss the options as item 4.2. Is that even necessary? I mean, it's in your staff report, so we could, I just want to know if we should put that on the agenda.
Yeah, for me, those options were a framework for council to work with to review the taxing district feedback. So I think it's appropriate to discuss those options within the agenda item we currently have.
Okay, so we'll
but
just
if-
leave it at, we'll just
I
leave
would
it at,
recommend leaving it. just
Yeah,
for
all right.
simplicity's sake.
that sounds good. All right, so that is, those are the only 2 points that I have. So let's go ahead and sally on if nobody else has anything for item 0.2. Okay, item 0.3 is speakers heard on non-agenda items. Are there any speaker request forms for non-agenda items?
Yes, Mayor, we received one speaker request form from Nidia Garcia.
Great.
I don't see her on the attendees.
Okay, is she one of the phone callers? Just checking in. So let's see, I think if you're a phone caller, you can *6. Is that right? Did I have that right? *6? Yeah, okay. If she comes in later and we have an opportunity to take her speaker request form, we certainly will. If we don't, we can ask her to make her comments on tomorrow night's agenda or set them in by writing. All right, so the next item on the agenda is item 4.1, discussion of taxing district feedback on proposal urban renewal plan. I'm sorry, Councilor Clark, you have your hand up and
Yeah. Point of order, if we're looking for Nidia, I see her in the attendees presently.
there she is, she's here.
May have just arrived. I don't know,
Okay,
but yeah, I did notice that.
thank you, I appreciate the heads up. Multiple sets of eyes. Okay, Lucero, you can bring Nidia into the panelist room. Okay, hi Nidia, please state your name and city for the record.
Hello, my name is Nidia Alicia Garcia, Talent, Oregon. Good to see many of you familiar faces here tonight. Afternoon, it's not night yet, sorry.
Okay, you have 5 minutes.
Yeah, I just have a point of clarification because sorry, I'm like coming in late. There was traffic in my Zoom earlier, so I should have waited. Well, thank you all so much for the time granted. I just wanted to chime in as I know that sorry, I'm trying to multitask and see. So discussion of taxing. Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure if this would qualify under the 4.1, so I added it as a non-agenda item. So pardon if I don't understand how to do these things properly.
Well, I am going to ask you, so if you want to make comments on Turo related items, I would actually go ahead and move you to that speaking that time when we'll be calling for the speaker request forms at that time. So is it a Turo related item or is it something that's not on the agenda?
Yeah, it's not on the agenda. It's a both and. I think I also signed up for the 4.1, but I just remembered why I asked for this time.
Okay, well, we'll be able to give you both times if they're, if one is non-agenda, and then when we get to 4.1, then we'll be calling people forward for Tora.
Okay, thank you so much. So, hello, Jordan, Darby, Anna, Elaine. I'm sorry, I don't know the first names for the rest of you, but thank you so much for hearing me out. I'm mostly here tonight because I love talent. I love my community. I love my people. I love the land. I love the waters. I love this land. And, you know, my heart is broken because of what happened to us in September 8th, but it has also come to my awareness, or it's dawned on me that from the fires, I want to just bring to your attention that we have this beautiful opportunity to consider the preservation of one of our last remaining naturally occurring affordable housing neighborhoods. That's Shady Brook Mobile Homes. And I want to bring this to your attention because this is a community that has been experiencing significant pressures with all of the new land developments that have been happening. I know cities have to develop and, you know, life goes on, but I do want to share about this neighborhood. This neighborhood is probably, if I'm not mistaken, one of the oldest long established communities. And I was recently disheartened. If you Google this neighborhood, it's currently being listed as a campground. And I have a background in environmental justice. And I just want you all to be aware that this is a subtle form of violence to invisibilize our community that just so happens to be low income, senior citizen. We got families with disabilities, we got families of color. And if you Google it, just notice that, because we don't want this community to be erased or to be minimized to a campground. I was personally very hurt and offended that it's being labeled as a campground when this isn't a community that's been around for many, many decades. Our Spanish-speaking Latino community is very familiar with this, and we lost our nose in the fires, but this community stands. And so I just want you all to be aware of this neighborhood and the importance for us to be aware of the 62 families that live there. Many of the residents who've lived there have lived there for 20, 30 years. That's probably longer than the majority of talent population. And so I think for our local culture and the preservation of our neighborhoods, just want to bring my neighborhood into y'all's attention, since Google's trying to make it, people think that it's a campground, and it's not. So that's what I came here tonight to share with you all, and also invite you all to drive there, come visit us, come see the beautiful, diverse, distinct homes that are there. And yeah, I think that's everything. I just think it's important because it's hard, you know, there's this language barrier that makes it hard for any of our neighbors there to ever get access to even knowing that you can show up to these meetings and talk to y'all. And so, yeah, just want to put y'all put us on your radar.
Thank you, Nydia. That's my timer just went off, and I set it from the time that we were working out all the technical stuff. So thank you for your comments. We really appreciate hearing from you and your view.
Thank you.
Are there any other folks that want to speak on non-agenda items? You know, when we do these Zoom meetings, I usually look to the audience, and just because it's an easier way to manage if there's anybody else that wants to also add to non-agenda items. All right, seeing none, let's go ahead and move on to item 4.1, discussion of the taxing districts on the proposed urban renewal plan. Staff?
All right, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, everyone, both council members and attendees tonight for joining us today. And I want to give a quick special shout out to Hector and Lucero, who have set up a community viewing station and are staffing it for folks who aren't able to log into Zoom today to still be able to watch what's going on in the meeting and then participate through asking questions through Hector and Lucero's laptops. So thank you, Hector and Lucero. So as council is aware of, and I'm sure most of the audience is aware of, the City of Talent had been working on a new revised urban renewal plan after received feedback from the community and taxing districts last August on a first draft of the plan. We revised the plan based off the feedback we heard at that time. And we went ahead and we sent this revised plan out for further public review and comment on December 30th. So we went ahead and we made the changes that we thought we could make to help address the issues and send them out to public review. We are now at the state of this process where we are receiving that feedback back. So the taxing districts have submitted letters to us that encapsulate their feedback and recommendations. And tomorrow night, we'll be hosting a public hearing to hear direct feedback from our community members as well. So the plan is still in its draft form. Council has the opportunity to make any changes to the plan based on any feedback that they hear from taxing districts, from the community members, or changes that you all feel still need to be made. And council will also have the decision if they are ready, if you all are ready, to send the plan, revised or not, to the ballot for May 2023. Our deadline for sending anything to the ballot is February 24th. And so we just are required to make a decision by that point to move forward. Any questions on just the process or where we are in the timeline before I jump into the taxing district feedback? Okay, beautiful. So today, and I'm going to rearrange here. So the City of Talent has received feedback on our plan from 4 different taxing districts, from the Jackson County, from the County Board of Commissioners, from the Phoenix Talent School District, from the Library Services, and from Jackson County Fire District 5. And so I'm going to spend a few minutes here going over the feedback that we've received, just to make sure you all absorb it and have a chance to ask any questions on it. And then I will jump in to just kind of look at the options as a framework for the approach. And then I can open it up for discussion and questions by council.
I just have a quick question before you jump in. I noticed that the cities isn't on here, and it's obvious that to me that, you know, we're going to be speaking about the other discussing the feedback we haven't gotten. But I would like, if we have the report in written form, to attach it to the record, because I do think it's one of the jurisdictions for consideration. And I want to make sure that, you know, folks, if they come into this record to look at what we're discussing, that we also have that on the record as well. And so if it's more appropriate to put it on either tonight or tomorrow night, I'd rather add it tonight. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, you know, Elaine and I discussed this with the first round of the plan 6 months ago. So technically, all of the taxing district feedback we've received has been discussed and blessed by the boards of each taxing district. The city is in a slightly different situation because it's our city council that's making the actual decision. So rather than submitting a formal letter from city council to themselves, I think what I'm more than happy to do is just write a summary of my analysis of the plan on its impact on the city, and I can include that analysis on our website for folks to look at, rather than have a formal feedback letter that would be approved by the board. Does that meet what you're hoping for, Mayor?
That makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Okay, great. And as always, council, I'm always happy to offer my feedback and recommendations throughout the conversation, if it would ever be useful at certain points. So with that being said, I will jump into the letters themselves. And I am going to take a little bit longer on these letters, since feedback we heard last go around when we reviewed the taxing district letter is to make sure we give the time and space for each letter itself. And Mayor, is your hand still up with a question? Great. All right, well, first off, before I do the share screen, I do want to thank you to all of the tax district boards that did meet together to discuss the plan and the staff that took the time to help craft the letter. We really appreciate that feedback, and it really helps us in our understanding of if the plan is in the right shape to move forward or not. So thank you to everyone who put in the time and effort. We know they are all in short supply these days. And I'm hoping you all can now see a PDF of Jackson County's letter. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and present the letters in just chronological order from when we received them. So the first letter we received was from the Jackson County Board of Commissioners. And really the Jackson County's main message is they still have concerns with the plan as it's currently written. And really the base core of their concern is the current assessed value, the current property taxes that the taxing districts would receive with the start date, the freeze date of the plan currently as it stands. And so what I have here highlighted is their specific recommendations on how we can still achieve the goals, but address those concerns around property tax revenue for taxing districts. So the first recommendation from the county is that we could delay the implementation of the draft plan for 1 year. So that is, we could set the freeze date back a year to allow more property tax revenue to get on the tax rolls for each taxing district. And I'll let you guys all, have reviewed the letters in the packet for the details as to why that's an option from the county's point of view. Another option is that the city could forego adopting this draft plan and instead look at alternative financing to get the projects done. That alternative financing could be something like general obligation bonds, or it could be something like increasing fees charged to our citizens to pay for those costs of projects that specifically benefit town citizens. Fourth, the county recommends that any projects that benefit private developers, or that in other jurisdictions private developers would typically be required to do, be removed from the plan as public infrastructure improvements. And then a fifth option that they recommend is to delay the implementation of the draft plan for additional year from the standpoint of being more able to make the projects happen with the staffing levels on hand. And then the last recommendation from the county is to expressly put in the urban renewal plan that if any major amendments are to occur, those major amendments would be put to the ballot for an advisory vote, much like we're doing for the adoption of the plan. And so those were the 6 main recommendations that came out of the county. And before I jump to the next, I just want to open up to any comments or questions specific to the Jackson County letter.
Counselor Panamarev?
Thank you. I do have a question about major amendments. So, yeah, if we were to adopt, the plan is in place, we decided we wanted to make a major amendment. Elaine, I'm trying to recall your words. I thought major amendments would require approval from the other jurisdictions, including the county. Was that right?
Well, Jordan, is it okay if I jump in?
Please.
First of all, there is no defined term as major amendments. So major amendments isn't a defined term in the plan. So we either have minor amendments or we have substantial amendments. And substantial amendments are defined by statute as either an increase in your maximum indebtedness or adding property in excess of 1% of your original acreage. So I think I don't know for sure. We can make the assumption that they're talking about those substantial amendments. I don't know that. At some point we would want to clarify. And I don't remember in the plan, Jordan, whether we added that those would have to be go to a vote or not. Do you?
It's currently just the ORS 457 specified process, which is not voter approved.
But my question is, so for substantial amendments, according to the ORS, it does have to, it requires some sort of approval from the top 3 jurisdictions or something?
ORS does not require a substantial amendment to be approved by the other taxing jurisdictions unless you are increasing your maximum indebtedness above a certain threshold amount. That is the only one where then you have to get concurrence with the different taxing districts. If you are just increasing your maximum indebtedness under the statutory amount, that's by ORS 457, you can do that on your own.
And what's that? I hate to put you on the spot, but can you give us an
Okay.
idea of how? Sorry?
What the threshold is? The threshold is if you increase over 10% of the initial maximum indebtedness, is it 10 or 20? I'll look real quick when I close out. A certain percentage of the maximum indebtedness as indexed by inflation every year until you do that increase. And I usually know that off the top of my head, but I'll look real quick. I think it's actually 20% of the initial maximum indebtedness, but I'll check that real quick here.
Okay, great. And any other questions before I move on to the school district's letter?
Yeah, it's of Elaine, it's a question for Elaine, so I'm gonna wait till she answers the other question. In the meantime, I'm gonna go grab some water real quick.
And yes, it's 20%. So if your maximum indebtedness is, I'm just going to use, so in this plan, Jordan, it's 15 something. So 20% of that is 3 million. And then you get to index that each year by whatever inflation factor you have used in your report. So you could increase your maximum indebtedness by city council authority, according to ORS 457. Anything above that amount would require taxing district approval, but not vote. The vote is something that is not in your charter. It's something that you have decided to do proactively. So there's nothing that requires that vote other than your policy decisions here.
My follow-up question on that question is, can you describe concurrence from the other jurisdictions in the event that they needed, that it was needed?
Yes. 457.470. So the concurrence means the vote of the board of taxing districts. Statutory provision. Taxing districts imposing at least 75% of the amount of taxes imposed under permanent rate limits for the urban renewal area. So that typically is the school district, the city, and the county. The fire district sometimes makes up that 75%. So looking at your tax rates, you would have to look at what makes up that 75%. And then if you ask for concurrence, you would have to get the boards of those taxing districts to approve that increase.
So just to clarify, if the amendment was above, and I missed it, was it 20%?
20.
Yeah, if it was above a 20% increase, we'd actually need to get the approval from the other jurisdictions, correct?
Not all of them, but 75% of those levying the permanent rate levy.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. That's answers my question. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, just to clarify, for any substantial amendment, though, we have to go back through the 45-day public review process and kind of repeat this for any substantial amendment, correct?
You do.
Okay,
You do.
just want to make sure I was remembering that correctly.
Yeah, a substantial amendment is the exact same process as adopting an original urban renewal plan.
And I'm seeing a hand up from the audience, and I just want to clarify that the process is, if you have any comments, that you can make it when we get to speakers heard on this item, but that we don't take questions from the audience as we go. So just FYI, but we'll definitely be getting to you. All right, Jordan.
Great, thank you. So the next letter that the city received, we received this.
Sorry.
Oh, pardon me. Yeah,
I thought there were going to be more questions. Could you go back to the county again? Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it was there.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, could we go to the first suggestion? Yeah, I just wanted to get a little clarification on the delay, how that would affect both the maximum indebtedness and the duration. And yet, I think they're saying, I'm just very interested in about the 7% versus the 26%. And I thought that could use a little bit of explanation.
yeah, absolutely. So if the city decides to delay the freeze date by a year, for when that frozen taxon base would be frozen, and then whatever gets built on top of that base is what goes into urban renewal. Our projections, and these are based off of estimates of what we're currently seeing on the ground, that taxon base would go up by 26%. So the all the taxing districts would receive 26% more revenue compared to if we froze the date as of January 2022. That's where that 26% comes in. The maximum indebtedness is, so if we push the urban renewal plan back a year, but we still want to achieve the same amount of projects, we will have to increase our maximum indebtedness slightly. We will have to do those projects at a slightly different time, and they'll be impacted by inflation. And so over the long run of urban renewal, we'll need slightly more. We'll need 7% more of maximum indebtedness in order to get the projects done. And then to get to that maximum indebtedness, we anticipate 20 years of tax increment financing to reach that higher maximum indebtedness.
And it sounds like, if I can follow up, it sounds like that's analysis you've already done, Jordan. You and the team have looked at that.
Yes, we have looked at that. Elaine and her firm, along with Tiberius Solutions, ran those projections for us.
Okay. So that's based on our projections, not just the county.
Those are based off of our city projections. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I have a couple questions on this too. I'm sorry, I also didn't know we were moving on. I wanted to get a little more clarification on suggestion from the paragraph that starts with second and third. And I mean, I understand the recommendation pretty well about increasing fees. I do want to clarify that while we haven't increased fees in those years, we have reallocated fees. When the library district went to the vote for forming a district, when it came out of the county and we formed a separate district, all of those fees that were previously going to the library were reallocated. And we were looking at increasing the fees in 2020. So we have had some activity around the fees, and those are the things that will impact the fees that are on the water bill, just for clarity. But the question I have is about some of the other suggestions of other ways that we can consider financing our recovery and resiliency plans. And the one suggestion is to issue general obligation bonds. And because of Measure 50, I think it is, we have sort of this, simply put, sort of a ceiling of taxation that we can impose on our residents. And I recall that it's called a compression rate. And if I remember correctly, our compression rate is pretty high, like every other city, because of Measure 50. So my question is, do obligation bonds impact that compression rate? Does anybody know the answer to that question?
Mayor, I will have to follow up on that specific question. I'm just gonna take a moment to write it down so it doesn't slip my mind.
So obligation bonds are us taking out a bond to pay for the recovery and resiliency plan, and then getting that paid is through additional taxes to the community. And what I want to know is, are those additional taxes applied towards our compression rate?
Correct. So I will share what, I do know about general obligation bonds. So they are almost always voter approved. Because they will be an additional tax upon community members here in Talent. General obligation bonds are typically a great tool to pay for capital projects, for very specific projects with very specific costs and timelines. There are actually restrictions on what general obligation bonds can be spent on. Currently, Talent is carrying a bit over a $6 million debt service. So we are still paying off bonds that we have and loans that we have specifically related to our water system. I myself, and I think Tessa would back me up on this, that is about the maximum debt load a city of our size and revenue would want to be carrying. We will lose about half that debt load in the next 5 to 7 years. And so I do think that in that kind of 5-year window is a great time to look at if general obligation bonds are appropriate for the city to do projects with. But I would be concerned about our long-term fiscal health if we were to take out additional GO bonds before having some of our debt service fall off.
And that debt service, I just out of curiosity, that debt service falling off is the grant for the water reservoir?
It's multiple. So we're carrying technically 3 separate loans and bonds that we're paying off. One is when we went out to install our tap improvements in infrastructure. That's the Talent Ashland Phoenix water line. That one will fall off probably in 5 to 7 years. And the other 2 are from the Safe Drinking Water Loan Fund. One of which paid for our brand new reservoir, the Rack Road Reservoir. And we'll carry that for the next 20 to 30 years, so we can bring that up when we do our budgeting conversations for council. And the other one is, I forget exactly which project it's for, but those have 2 major balloon payments coming up within the next 8 years. And so that'll fall off in that time period.
Yeah, thank you. The tap one's a really old one, so it makes sense that it's falling off.
2835.
All right. I'm sorry? Councilor Penamriff, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. It was in regard to option 3, and the simple action of increasing fees upon the citizens. I just want to make sure I understand the last sentence in that paragraph correctly. I don't know if you can highlight it, Jordan, that begins with, we believe the residents and businesses of Talent are better positioned to incur the cost, of these projects. So I don't know, just the way I interpret that, it sounds like they are saying, businesses that are hit, people that are impacted, you're in a better position to pay increased fees to solve your problems. I don't think I can. Anyway, I guess it wasn't really a question, but I just wanted to draw a little bit of attention to that, it kind of encapsulates the thought there. Thanks.
I do have a follow-up question on that I'd like to add. It may be that this is a research question and we need to get the answers back, but I mean, I'm reading this county letter pretty carefully because I think they went a long way in trying to, provide us with other solutions or other ways to pay for, the needed recovery and resiliency plan that's really designed to take care of our unmet needs, those things that we know are going to get paid for through the federal funding and things like that. So I appreciate that aspect of it. I really do want to drill down on some of the recommendations. I'll do more of that tomorrow night. But one of the things I think it'd be important for us all to know is what is the process for raising fees? I mean, I have experience with it. The one thing I can't remember though is I can't remember whether or not that impacts our compression. I'm fairly certain it doesn't, but I think it's an important thing for us to know. It seems to me that it's the workaround for Measure 50, that cap on Measure 50, where cities can adopt, councils can adopt these increases of fees without going to the voters. But I think spelling out the process tomorrow night might be helpful when we deliberate amendments and that sort of thing. Elaine, did you have a question?
I just wanted to say that I think I know some of these answers, but I don't want to say anything until I confirm it with Nick. So I've sent him a text and he will be part of your meeting tomorrow night. So if I don't hear back from him, you can ask these same compression kind of questions. And I don't want to say the wrong thing and get people confused. So I'm just confirming with him. But in any case, he'll be at your meeting tomorrow to be able to answer some of those.
Great. Councilor Perry Miller?
Thank you, Mayor. Jordan, I was wondering if you could clarify what you said earlier when you said that fees have not been increased since 2020. Did the city have a fee schedule? And if so, what happened to it? And I guess I'm also just hoping that you can clarify if they haven't been raised because of COVID and the fire, which I'm guessing is the reason.
Yeah, so I'll give you the long, quick summary here. So apologies if I start rambling on. So we have many different flavors of fees that the city charges. So there's the fees that we put on new development. And so those are the things that we charge for the fee it takes, for the time it takes to review plans, the time it takes our public works staff to put hydrants into the ground or water meters into the ground. And then we also charge things for charges for service. And so those are things like when we fulfill public records requests, etc. Another flavor of fees are SDCs, system development charges. And those are fees that we assess on development to help people buy into our infrastructure and help our infrastructure keep up with demand. Then lastly, we have utility bill charges. And so this is when we add a charge to the monthly utility bill to help cover costs for example, public safety. We have a $1.50 per month charge for helping support our police department. We also have one on there for transportation, stormwater, and parks. And so all of those different flavors of fees all have their own different methods of calculations. And they've all been updated at different times. So for example, our stormwater SDCs haven't been updated since 2006. But our water SDCs were updated in 2019. If you look like things for charges of service, for like how much it costs in staff time to review building permits, that is based off of a formula that the city really hasn't reassessed. And from the records that I've been able to see, probably the last 8 to 10 years as a minimum. And so what I'm really looking forward to, along with Tessa, is putting the city on a regular schedule of 2 years where we relook at everything every 2 years so that we can just better keep up and understand. I do know that the city was poised to look at all of these things right before COVID hit. And actually, they were still being ready to be brought to council in September 2020 when the fire happened. And obviously, it has fallen off since the fire. It was actually set for the September 10th agenda for a review of city fees. And obviously September 8th happened, and our focus has been on fire recovery ever since. So Council Prano, I hope that helps kind of a little bit of understanding of where we are. I do know a focus has been on keeping fees low for now so that we could help the recovery as folks rebuild.
I have a follow-up on that, Jordan. As I recall, the fee review was part of our goal setting, and then it was coming before us in September of that year. I do remember, I remember that we were just about to assess all of our charts, but I just want to make sure that in this case, because a lot of that really doesn't have anything to do with this fire recovery and resiliency plan that we need to fund. In this case, I believe the county is talking about the fees that are on do we have on the utility bills? So the additional fees that are on the utility bill, do we have any other fees that we could impact that we could use for this plan? Like I've been under the assumption the whole time that those are the fees that they were talking about. But now that you mentioned all those other fees, are there any other fees that we could adjust that would be allowed to be used for these unmet needs?
Yeah, I will go ahead and reach out to the county tomorrow just to make sure I have full clarification and understanding of this specific paragraph. A big area where we could relook at fees would be those system development charges, which is what we charge on new development to help invest in capital projects. So I would say the fees here are likely, and I will clarify this and answer at tomorrow night's meeting, for both the system development charges as well as those utility bill fees, since those are two of our primary ways of funding infrastructure.
So I have a follow-up on that. I can now see that those, like maybe SDCs could be used to help maybe install sidewalks. I did kind of take exception. The one exception, I actually really appreciated this letter, and the one exception I really took, well, maybe not one, but definitely one that I took was on the assertion that we don't require developers to build sidewalks, and that's simply not true. Subdivisions are all required to put in sidewalks, gutters, streets. But in this case, we have built into the plan sidewalks to try and recover, or to try and build sidewalks in, let's see, let me rephrase it. So the sidewalks that are in the plan are in neighborhoods where there wasn't sidewalks before the fire, where it was an older neighborhood. And I think there's like two neighborhoods that I can think of, Gangness and Lithia. And we just didn't require folks who were building like for like and using their insurance money to rebuild and then add in sidewalks and gutters, et cetera. So would that be an example if we were to make some adjustments to the plan, like maybe take that one and pay for it in different ways? Would that be an example of something that could be paid for with SDCs?
I'm going to hedge and get back to you on that one. The reason being SDCs are incredibly specific on what they can and cannot be used for. And it's very often project specific. So I will connect with our engineer who helps us calculate what SDCs can be used for what, and provide that answer tomorrow night.
Good. I think it's important as we look at some of this feedback that we also talk about things that, maybe we can move into, different kind of plan stacks where they can be paid for and with different methods, like we've been talking about all along, that this is going to take several tools, and maybe some of this plan can be shaved off and paid for with things like SDCs. So I'm going to be asking a lot of questions about that. Anybody else have anything else on the county plan? I mean, on the county feedback? Yeah, I just, before we move on, just really want to express my appreciation. I know we have county representatives here. You guys really took the time and offered us a lot of solutions in your feedback, and I, for one, really appreciate it. All right, Jordan.
All right, thank you. So moving on to the school district letter, and we received the district's letter on Friday afternoon, and so apologies for getting it to you all on Monday. the school district that really just focuses on, you know, their unsureness of what school funding will look like in the foreseeable future and beyond. And really the school's recommendation boils down to waiting an additional year before considering urban renewal, to just better understand how the recovery is going and how it will potentially cause impacts. I will go ahead and scroll up because I just kind of did the quick summary and scroll through. But really the school district, just to re-summarize, you know, is on board with the goals and objectives of this plan. You know, their concern is really focused around future funding for schools and funding to the fire service and police services who they partner with. They echo some of the county's concerns and then ask for one more year for more opportunities for engagement and feedback. And so I will open up for any questions or comments specific to the school district letter.
Counselor Byers?
It is connected to the letter. You gave a wonderful presentation for the county. I'm wondering if the school board gave you the opportunity to give an equally wonderful presentation to them.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Byers. So I gave no formal presentation to the school board.
Mhm.
I did make the offer several times to Brent that I was more than happy to attend any school board meetings. However, I did have direct contact and regular contact with their finance director. She attended regular meetings with me, and then I actually thank you to the school board members who came to our city town halls on urban renewal, and to Don, who attended one of my meetings with Yasmin to ask some questions directly.
Wonderful, thank you.
Counselor Perry Miller?
Just a clarifying question, Jordan, what was that last thing that you said about manager meetings? I'm sorry, what was it?
Yeah, so I, since we started kind of redesigning this plan and then putting the plan back out to the taxing district for feedback, if I've just been scheduling, you know, open houses with the taxing districts so that those general managers, EDs, or whoever is kind of at the top level there can drop in, ask questions, receive materials so that they feel informed enough to talk to their boards about what talent is doing, etc. So those are, I referred to those as manager meetings throughout the last few months.
Counselor Perry Miller, do you have a follow-up?
I do, thanks. How often did you hold those, and did we get a lot of participation by our partners? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so I'd have to look back at my calendar to see how often I held them. I know my goal was 1 month, or sorry, one per month over the rewrite process, but I'd have to look at to see which ones canceled due to sickness or cross scheduling. I will say when the first time around, so I did help hold these with our last one when I took over for the urban renewal as executive director, and we had very, very high engagement. In this second round of this urban renewal plan, at that first meeting, I had a lot of folks come and attend. And then after that, when it's just been dropped by to ask questions, we really only consistently have had the library attend, as well as the school district attend.
Counselor Byers?
Thank you. Just another point of clarification. The school board's final sentence, waiting 1 more year, would provide more opportunities for critical engagement and feedback. Did you feel like in your conversations that really was that, how to phrase this correctly, that was the primary urging for the wait, or was it a wait to freeze the tax base and to have more time to also engage the community? I'm just trying to gauge like all layers of thinking connected to the letter.
Yeah, so I will say at those manager meetings and at the town halls, it was really specific, just Q&A about the nuts and bolts of urban renewal and the urban renewal plan. I never really received any direct feedback from jurisdictions, you know, because my recommendation was to them of, you know, please provide that to my board as they make a decision. But I will give Brent a call next year. I'll give him a call tomorrow to get that clarification around what their ask is, if it's a year of engagement, or if it's just delaying the start date, that freeze date for an additional year.
Yeah, thank you, because those are two different things for sure. Two different asks.
I have a follow-up question on that, Jordan, if I may. So if the council did change the freeze date to, to take the recommendation that we know is clear from the county to change the freeze date, if that was what they did, we would be able to review things like removing, like if we moved off some of the infrastructure we would be allowed to be used to use fees and things like that to pay for. We could do that during that time, right? Is that?
Yeah, so if the county would like, sorry, you guys, it's someone brought Twizzlers for Valentine's Day and I ate way too many today, which is making my word association a little off. So if the council would like to delay the freeze date by 1 year, this county or the city can do that in multiple ways. We could make that determination now and still put the plan on the May ballot. The difference being is it just wouldn't be effective until after that January 2023 tax roll is certified. Or we could take the time, as long as the urban renewal plan is adopted, anytime between, and Elaine, you can double check me on this because this is calendar on the fly. As long as council considers and adopts an urban renewal plan, anytime between this October 2024, up to October 2025, is it will have a start date of January 2023. Elaine, was I off by 2 years? October 2023 to October 2024. So we really, if the council is interested in delaying it up to 1 year, we could have the January 2023 freeze date up until the January 2024 tax roll is certified in October 2024. Did I confuse all of you even more? Okay, Elaine was yes, Councilor Clark was yes. Elaine, do you mind giving that explanation a go?
So there's a couple of ways you could do this. You could adopt a plan and say you're going to use a free date after the next tax roll is certified. And you could go ahead and adopt the plan now, but say that you want the frozen base established next October. You could adopt a plan now just as the one that's written, or you could wait until after October where a new frozen base is established and adopt a plan then. As long as you adopt a plan between now and January, before January 1st, you would have the same year that you start your, well, no, I think if you use the freeze date, that would be a little tricky on when your increment would start if you changed your freeze base. And I'd have to talk to Nick about that. So if you adopt the plan now, you'll use the tax roll with the assessed value as of January 2022. Your first bullet point should be, if you adopt the plan now, you'll use the tax roll with an assessed value base of 2022. So just because if that was established in October, it doesn't get changed until next October. If you adopt the plan after October 10th of this year, you'll use the assessed values of January 2023. And either of those, as long as you adopt before January 1st, you would have your first year of increment in fiscal year end 2025.
I have a follow-up question to that. So it sounds to me like that changes it. It changes the start of the plan. And so one of the options that we've been provided as as part of this framework is to change the freeze date to 1 year later, the frozen tax base set as the assessed values of January 2023. And then if we send that to the voters, does that change the start date?
I don't think it changes the start date. You just won't know what that frozen base amount is until the assessor certifies the next tax roll. Because that doesn't happen until next October.
So in that scenario, and Elaine, correct me, so if council decides to say, hey, we want to delay the freeze date, put it as the assessed values as of January 2023, so push it back a year, but we still want voters to vote on it in May 2023. What would happen in that scenario is we put it on the ballot, voters would vote, and if they approve it, we would then have council consider the ordinance to adopt the plan after that October date that certifies the January 2023 tax roll. So the only real difference would be when we have council consider the actual adoption ordinance. Okay.
Councilor Panamarev?
Yeah, just to confirm, and if we did that, I thought I understood that, well, I'll just ask, would we have to go through the 45-day consult and confer again? Okay, no.
Well,
Thank you.
I've been asked that question. I think you've gone through the consult and confer. They've given you information. And if you make changes based on your information, I don't think that means you have to start consult and confer over. You've consulted and conferred. They've given you information. You've responded to their information. But it wouldn't hurt to check your legal counsel and just verify. And if you don't mind, I got a text back from Nick on the compression issue. And he says, GO bonds, first of all, never suffer any compression losses, and they don't make any compression worse for any other levies. So GO bonds aren't part of that whole compression analysis, that compression factor. They're outside of it. And he could explain that further tomorrow night if you want. His other comment was, otherwise voters could approve GO bond levies and wind up just stealing money from the general funds of other taxing districts because the GO bond levies would cause compression. So GO bond levies are outside of those $10 per thousand for general government and $5 per thousand for education.
Councilor Panamarev?
Yeah, and just to clarify, GO, you mean general obligation bonds, is that
Correct.
right? Thank
Correct.
you.
Jordan, I do have another question about the school's feedback. Can you scroll back? Actually, I can look at my agenda. I just hate moving it back up and down because I always have such a hard time getting back to where I was. Yeah, the paragraph about, let's see, let me make sure I read this recording. I just wanted to get some clarification on you know what, actually, I think I actually misunderstood the point. So I'm gonna get some clarification directly from well, never mind. Yeah, I think I misunderstood something that I read, so that's it for me.
Any more questions just specific to the school letter before I move to the library services? All right, beautiful. The library services letter we received yesterday, and really their main message is that they support this proposed urban renewal plan and really recognize the goals of urban renewal. And they had no recommendations for any changes. Any questions or comments regarding the library letter? Okay. And last but not least, we received, I'll make it a little smaller. A little smaller here. There we go. We did receive Jackson County Fire District 5's response today. We received it at 11:30 today. So I know this is the letter that you all have had least time to review, but I will go over the highlights in this letter. So the main points that the fire district make is that they are concerned about the significant negative impact on the taxing district, specifically Jackson County Fire District 5's funding. And then their second concern is they do not believe that we're complying with the statutory requirements for urban renewal. I will share, we have, the city does have urban renewal specialist attorney that we have hired for this. They have not had the chance yet to review the fire district's letter. I just want to let you all know that we do have that resource. And ultimately, Jackson County Fire District 5 opposes adoption of the plan. Their letter goes into some really great detail as to why they are concerned on certain areas. I am going to just jump straight into the recommendations that they have, but recommend to council that you all take some time with your hopefully loved ones tonight during Valentine's Day to look deeper into the details as your capacity allows. So the recommendations from Jackson County Fire District 5 are to, before you take a vote or take any action or movement forward, to consider the adverse effects that the adoption of the plan would have on funding for regional fire services, which our regional fire service is Jackson County Fire District 5, and the areas that they feel are inconsistent with the legal requirements. Their recommendation number 2 is to decline to adopt this plan if the city decides to move forward with considering the plan. Recommendation number 3 is for the city to look at ways to modify the plan to reduce the impact on Jackson County Fire District 5, including but not limited to ensuring that their fiscal budget is made whole through TURA or other city funds, and capping the TURA annual tax increment receipts to those projected in the plan. And then their last recommendation, which is at the bottom of the page, I will scroll up for you all to see, is that adoption of this plan be referred to the voters, and that any extension of the duration or maximum indebtedness of the plan, so a substantial amendment that changes the maximum indebtedness or length, also require approval by the voters. So similar to the county's recommendation there. And I will say the remainder of their document goes into details of why they're making those requests and their reasons behind it. So any comments or questions on the Jackson County Fire District 5 correspondence?
Councilor Panamarev?
Thank you. So this is the second reference to a substantial amendment being put to a vote, which is not a statutory requirement, Elaine, right? Unless it's above the 20%, then other people have to approve. Otherwise, it's council authority.
Correct.
So if we were to say accept that recommendation, is that something that would need to be baked into the ordinance? That was assuming that the voters, the advisory vote was affirmative. Would that be something that would be baked into the ordinance that the council ultimately approved? Or would it have to be put in the plan beforehand? Or I'm just not quite sure where something like that would go and when it would need to be there.
Elaine?
I work with a couple of other cities that do have that provision, and it's a voluntary provision or a charter provision. And it is baked into their plan itself. So under substantial amendment, it includes language that says that any substantial amendment will be subject to voter approval or something like that within the plan itself. So if that was something that you decided you want to do, you would just direct staff to make that change to the plan.
And if I could follow up. And in that case, such a vote would not be advisory, right? It would constrain the actions. Our actions.
It depends on what you put. So the vote that I think you've talked about doing is advisory. This language says require approval. So that's not advisory, that's approval. So it depends. I have the city of Wilsonville just does advisory votes. So they aren't required to go with what that vote is, where other cities require the approval. So it depends on what language you would put into the plan.
Okay, in any case, it would be putting something to the voters in the event we decided to change something in a substantial way after more than 20% after the fact. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions on this letter? I did have a chance to read the letter. I found it really challenging to get this in the last minute and have to try to be informed enough to have a good conversation about it tonight. So I really feel like I want to reserve some of my my ability to be able to talk about this at greater length as I tomorrow night, as I will take some of the time between now and then, probably not tonight, but between now and then, and really absorb some of what they're saying. But there seems to be some legal assertions that I in my review of some of the ordinances, some of the ORSs, it's confusing, and it doesn't seem to jibe really with the ORS language, and I'm not an attorney, so I'm hoping that maybe we have access to the attorney tomorrow night. And here's the thing: I want to ask for the ability to talk to the attorney, but after looking it over, I'm not sure that it would warrant having them here. So I guess I would look to the other counselors and find out if you had an opportunity to go through this, and if so, did it raise questions that you wanted to ask of our urban renewal attorney? That's kind of just how I feel about it, but I don't want to. This is a group effort. Councillor Clark and then Councillor Perry Miller.
Well, just very generally, I would be interested to hear our attorney's feedback, because there are a number of items on here that I was surprised to read, and if it's possible to get some legal expertise from our side on what these regarding these assertions in the letter, I think that would be helpful.
Councillor Perry Miller.
I agree with Councillor Clark. And I also just wanted to know if Jordan and Elaine have had time to fully dive into this letter, and if they had any thoughts or initial feedback. just that we could hear tonight.
Elaine, would you want to go first, or you want to go
Sure.
second?
I did read the letter. I am not an attorney either. So they're making a lot of assertions that I think are legal issues that at some point if you adopted a plan, what do they do with these? Do they end up filing appeal? I don't know what they would do. I know that many of the provisions that you have put in your plan, we have put in many other plans, and those plans, but they've never been legally challenged. So I think it's a legal issue, and it'd be great to hear what your attorneys say about what they've set out.
And I'll jump in and just share some thoughts as well. I will contact our attorney to see if they can attend via phone or Zoom tomorrow night. They may not be able to with the short notice, but I for sure will get their eyes on the fire district's concerns, and I will be able to summarize and provide you all some feedback. I do just want to walk through some of the concerns that the fire district shared so that you all as council are aware of them as you read through in more detail. So one of the first concerns that the fire district had was that the urban renewal projects are not based upon good faith estimates of scope and costs. I will share with you all that the scope and costs of the projects in the urban renewal are based off of what I would consider good faith estimates, particularly since I used urban renewal programs that other urban renewal agencies were using in the state of Oregon to more accurately know, what costs and kind of services do urban renewal provide. So they were based on actual programs. The second concern that brought up by the fire district is that we plan to specify the certification requirement. Once again, this is a legal determination. From hearing both sides of the story, I think there definitely are both sides of the story on that. We were sadly in a disaster that was certified by the governor as an emergency, and that City of Talent then certified, and that we have named a burn scar and are actively working on recovering from. Requires conditions of blighted areas. We discussed this a little bit early on, that ORS 457.160 does preclude us from having to have the definition of blight. This stems back to the fire district's concern that we don't actually have an area in need of redevelopment, or at least a certified area in need of redevelopment, which would not make 457.160 eligible. And then the same thing, oh, sorry, this is not the comprehensive plan one, is it? Pardon me. Quick scrolling, blighted areas. Plan is overly broad and beyond the scope of the affected Alameda fire area. I hear that concern. We really worked on narrowing down our projects to be disaster recovery specific, including preparing for the next disasters. Vacation of Woodfield property may be acquired as a concern. Financial analysis for feasibility. These are all very detailed things, that would be something that would need to be assessed from both sides for their legality. So I just want to assure council that I'm bringing this to the thing we're working with. But I would say that there is a perspective from both sides around if we have followed ORS 457 or not.
Councilor Penamriff?
Yeah, I'm just trying to recall. I don't remember if the county's letter questioned the legality of anything, either before the original plan or this plan. And I seem to remember the fire district questioned the legality with what seemed to me at the time a really uninformed perspective on the ORS. So I'm also not an attorney, but it would be good to get our, an experienced attorney's look at this, even with it just this looks like it's pretty much without merit, which is how much of this letter struck me.
I wonder, Jordan, if maybe the question to ask the attorney is, if they get an opportunity to take a look at the letter, whether or not it's prudent for us to either just hear get a summary, or should we actually call an executive session and really review the letter with the attorney? And I'm just wondering if that's a question we should ask the attorney.
Yeah, I will go ahead and get their recommendation of best next steps for us. As you know, our specialized attorney would want me to tell you, anything is appealable, anything can be sent to litigation. It's always just a question of the likelihood of the outcome of that litigation.
Which is, yeah, I mean, that might be, I just would like to find out if he thinks, or if they think that it would warrant a deeper discussion, in which case we'd probably have to discuss a separate executive session.
Absolutely.
All right.
And
Go ahead.
Mayor, I have one last just section to present to you all before opening it up to everyone here. And that is just a reminder. Let's see if I can find it. So per the requirements of ORS 457, the City Council does have to respond to the recommendations received from taxing districts. And that response becomes a part of the formal ordinance that we adopt when we adopt the plan. So this is something that I'm hearing we will save until tomorrow night's discussion when we go through those line by line item recommendations. But just to let you all know that, if council decides to move forward with considering recommending the plan to the ballot for May 2023, we will want to have this discussion first to clarify what is or is not changing in that plan. So this is all what is referred to tomorrow night's discussion after the public hearing. And then just so that we are all on the same page, in the staff report for tonight, and it's the same framework as presented for the staff report for tomorrow night, I did lay out 4 options that kind of representing some overarching general directions that council could take regarding what we do with the plan at this point. Yeah, go ahead, Mayor.
Before we jump in, I want to take Councilor Penamra's question, and then I have a question before we transition over to these options.
Yeah,
Councilor Penamra.
Thank you. So the matrix that you were showing us before with adopt, modify, or reject, that wasn't in tonight's packet, right? I didn't see it.
No.
Is it part of tomorrow's packet, or could we just get that document to have in front of us by email or something at some point?
Absolutely. I've just made this, I'll send it your way.
Okay, thank you so much.
I have 2 questions regarding some of the stuff that we just went over. One is, I'd like to hear a little bit more about general obligation bonds. So the fact that there's no compression suggests that that could be a tremendous opportunity to be looking at. Even though I understand that for a small city, we're carrying a lot of debt for our water system. At some point in time, we're going to have to figure out how to pay for recovery around the needs that are not met, and there's quite a bit of it. So I do feel like it's going to be important for us to have a lot of information available to us, and one I think important tool for us to look at is general obligation bonds, especially if it doesn't hit our compression. So I'd like to have a little more understanding of how they work, and my memory just doesn't serve me well on this front. So maybe if we can get some more information about that, and how it would, it's not just how they work, because I could do some research myself, but just how that would be applied. And I don't want to try to think what the commissioners were trying to suggest. I'd rather ask them, in what way were they thinking that these general obligation bonds could be applied? If that's even a question. And then the other question I have is, I remember I was trying to think of the school district's comments and isn't in their letter. So that's what stopped me earlier. But now I remember where I saw the comments. It's in the minutes of their January work session when they were first. So my understanding is that they did talk about the plan in their January work session. And then there was another conversation, a lot of Q&A in their February meeting. And in the minutes of the January meeting, Brent, the superintendent, refers to a lot of talk about changing the funding structure of school districts. And I reached out to Representative Pam Marsh, and I think we even asked Elaine the other day if there's like any bills incoming or anything. So I haven't been able to find anything, and Representative Marsh didn't know of any. So maybe it'd be more appropriate, I think, if the city would just send a quick inquiry to Brent to find out what, I'd like to know more about that. It seems to be one of the major concerns. There's a whole paragraph about it. So I definitely want to know more about that. And then also, Elaine, when the conversation came up, I think I remember you talking about, school districts in that there's not in the history of an urban renewal as a school district been, do you remember the conversation I asked?
I do. I do.
Recap that?
And I've been doing urban renewal work for 18 years or so, and worked for an urban renewal agency before then. I cannot remember a time, so it's saying what I can or can't remember. I cannot remember a time when a school district opposed an urban renewal plan.
And but it's about the way that they're reimbursed. Is there any school district that has not received the funding?
We have a state school fund, and it's really to make sure that all students get equal access to education. That's what the state school fund is all about. So that students who live in poor districts do not receive less money for their education. So abolishing or getting rid of the state school fund and its ability to equalize funding, I don't think that will happen. Maybe different funding scenarios would go into that state school fund. And I have not heard of anything in the legislature, but again, that there could be something going on that I don't know about. So following up with the school district would be great to find out what information they have or what their concerns are. I would really be very interested in knowing those.
Great. All right. Thank you. I thought I remembered you saying that in the history of urban renewals, or maybe in the urban renewals, you have you remember that no school has ever not gotten that funding. But I think I saw Councilor Byers' hand go up, and then did you have a question, Councilor Byers?
No, I was going to second that. I would love to have more information on that. And I do think that there is at least a perception of some uncertainty with some funding at state level for schools, but I would love to know more about that perception. I would love to know more about the other components that are feeding into that potential uncertainty. And I look forward to hearing the information that's gathered.
Yeah, I remember there was a little bit of saber rattling going on during the elections from the other party about school funding, but I don't know of any conversations that's carried on, and that's really what I want to get to the bottom of as well. Councilor Panamrev?
Yeah, I just wanted to recall when we've had the discussions about school funding before, what my understanding is that school funding depends on the number of students. And one of the results of the Alameda fire was a huge decrease in enrollment. to the Phoenix Talent School District. And they got like a 3-year reprieve from the state legislature, so that even though they don't have the students, they're not losing funding. I seem to remember it was 3 years. And at the risk to the school district, if the funding mechanism of Safe Schools remains the same, is that not bringing our families home, not supplying the housing and building back what we need to do will result in a permanently decreased enrollment that will result in less money to the schools. So I just wanted to bring back those elements of the conversation as well.
So Mayor, I'm going to give a quick summary. Oh, first to Councilor Kramer a little bit. After that, I will give a quick summary of the information that I will gather for tomorrow night's conversation, just to make sure I'm covering all bases.
That's great. Thank you. Councilor Perry Miller.
Thank you. Just very briefly, I did want to just mention to Jordan that in your research, Senator Demborough is the chair of the Senate Education Committee. So if you wanted to also just reach out directly to him, he could probably shed some light on what's going on up in Salem. And then I was just wondering, based on what Councilor Panamaroff said, do we happen to know how many students are still displaced? I mean, it's been a couple of years, but I was just wondering if Jordan might know that. And if not, that's fine.
Yeah, I'll get that latest estimate from Brent. What they have right now is the number of students that they're busing in from more than 45 minutes away of students who are displaced from the district. And then we have the enrollment numbers for how far they were down at their October enrollment count. And in that October enrollment count, they were down 200, 300 students. So I will get the latest update from Brent and share that with you tomorrow night if there's any major changes.
Before you do a summary, I have one more thing to add. I'm just wondering if tomorrow night when we start the meeting, I expect, you've done a tremendous outreach, and I want to thank you for that. I know that it came at the price of evenings with your family and with the 3 town halls that you've done and the jurisdictional meetings that you've held. And I really just want to thank you for your incredible effort. But I'm going to ask you one more time if you can do a summary of the plan at the beginning, or if you've already planned to do that. I think there's going to be, it being the public hearing, we may very well have members of the community that have not been summarized on the plan yet, and it might be a good opportunity to do that if we can.
No, absolutely. And just to let council know, tomorrow night's flow is going to be typical orders of business, speaker heard on non-agenda items, consent calendar, and then we'll go straight into our public hearing. So at that public hearing, we'll open it up. I'll give the staff report, which includes a summary of the plan, a summary of where we are in the process and what this public hearing's intent is. Council will have a chance to ask questions, and then we'll open up to the public. Once the hearing closes with public comment, council will then have the chance to just discuss the feedback heard, discuss the plan in general. We'll come back to this taxing district conversation because we'll put it on tomorrow night's agenda. And then ultimately, to close off the night will be the opportunity to look at a resolution that would then forward the plan with whatever amendments may or may not have been made to the May ballot if council so chooses. So that that'll be the flow for tomorrow night's evening, and where this taxing district conversation will fall will come after that public hearing. Okay. And with that, I will summarize kind of what I've heard of areas of interest for tomorrow night. So first thing is I will reach out to the county in the morning to just better understand their paragraph around increasing fees and kind of where they recommend and see the most flexibility for that. And I will also talk with Brent at the school district to get clarity around if they're talking delaying considering urban renewal, or if they're talking about just delaying that freeze date, as well as better understand the concern of funding restructuring for schools and the concerns they have around that. I will also get together some more information on general obligation bonds so that council can really understand the benefit as well as the limitations of that as a potential funding source. I will put together a better visual for start date so that you all know the timing for different start date and freeze dates of the plan and how different decisions may impact that, as well as a summary of the impacts to the city by implementing the plan now or delaying the freeze date by a year. And that is, and I will also look into if SDCs are eligible for sidewalks, or specifically how best to fund sidewalk improvements. Did I miss anything for any of you guys?
Counselor Byers?
This is connected, but it's not a direct response. But as you're listing the information that you're gathering for tomorrow night's meeting and presentations, I would be curious to have at least an initial presentation of what it means if we listen to all these recommendations to not do this. I'm curious what it means if we don't have an urban renewal plan. I would like to know how that would impact us as a city and with our rebuilding goal.
Can I add a little clarity? Because I appreciate that question, but I think one, I don't know if I'm adding clarity or not, but I guess maybe I'm asking for it. I mean, I feel like we have this plan that I've been calling fire recovery and resiliency, but I think it's fire recovery and revitalization is the name of the plan, the Alameda Fire Plan. I mean, the plan will still exist. It's just I think I'm asking you, Councilor Byers, is it that we would be wanting to know what the other alternatives would be if we don't have an urban renewal to pay for the plan? Did I understand it right?
Yeah, I want to know what the impact is if we are, I mean, we're hearing this feedback that all of these taxing jurisdictions are advising to not adopt this plan. And I see a lot of promise and a lot of really incredible work that could happen with this plan. And also, I would like to be informed as to what it means if we are not using this plan to try to achieve what we're hoping to achieve. For comparison, for my own edification, and just so that I know I've heard that information.
So I'm just jotting down a note here for that. Thank you, Councilor Byers.
Are there any other questions before we jump into a review of the options for the framework for tomorrow night's deliberations? Okay, Jordan.
Great. Let me share screen one more time. So really the general directions that council has really as the choice before them after hearing all of this taxing district feedback and hearing the feedback tomorrow night at the public hearing is council could choose to make no substantial changes to the plan at this time and refer the plan for an advisory vote on the May 2023 election. Just so you all know, we can still make language changes to the plan. We can make alterations to the plan for clarifications, corrections, etc. But doing major changes such as changing the boundary, changing the project list, etc., would not fall under this option one. Option two would be a change to freeze date. So if we wanted to push that freeze date back to whatever gets certified this October, we can do that and still get it on the May 2023 ballot. Once again, we can do minor changes to the plan, such as language additions or clarifications, but doing any major changes to the boundary or to the projects themselves would not be a great choice under option two. Option three would be making those larger changes. So either changing the boundary or the projects or anything else, goals and objectives wise within the plan. Making those changes will automatically push the freeze date back, most likely, since we wouldn't be able to get it onto the ballot until November, May of next year. And so that's when the October date will already be certified, so we'll automatically have the freeze date moved back. Option 4 is really a not to forward with urban renewal as a recovery tool at this time. Instead, assess recovery over the next 6 months, and then, really define what urban renewal is the best tool for and reconsider it at a later date. Those are just the 4 overarching options I'm putting before you all, just to help provide a framework for either tonight's discussion or tomorrow's. And I'm here to answer any questions tonight. I can get the lights to go on. There we go.
Counselor Pestizo, and then Counselor Perry Miller.
Yeah, thanks. I'm curious, which, if any of these 4 options would require us to go through the whole process again and, like we've just gone through twice versus just changing the plan and moving ahead? Thanks.
Yeah, so option 2 and option 4 would recommend to go through that 45-day consult and confer period again, if under those conditions we've made major changes to the plan. So if we change the boundary, or if we change the goals and objectives of the projects, it's to be on the safer side to make sure all of the I's are dotted and T's crossed would be to redo the consult and confer period.
Thank you. Counselor Perry Miller.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Jordan, for outlining all of these great options for us. I'm a little bit hesitant to start weighing in, though, because I really want to hear from folks tomorrow at the public hearing. Is that going to work for you?
Yes, absolutely. Actually, I would recommend to the council to wait to hear from the public as well, just in case it pushes you in a different direction than what you're feeling like you're sitting with right now. So I would recommend that to you all.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that, because in the last probably 48 hours reading everything and reading all the different options, I have been in every single option at least 4 or 5 times. It's just like crazy to try and the hearing from the public is going to be, our residents, is going to be really helpful. Hey, one more thing for that list of things that we want to look at. Maybe this isn't relevant to tomorrow night's conversation, but we also got a letter of feedback from a representative of Coalition Fortaleza, and she talked about taking out Shady Brook. And I know that it was put in so that we could do the pathway project on Wagner Creek. And in looking at the map again today, it looks like we could still do that project without Shady Brook, but I'm not the expert. So 2 questions is, would we be able to accomplish the restoration project? I mean, the pathway project of Wagner Creek without Shady Brook, question number 1. And then question number 2 is, if that was one of the amendments we made based on some of the recommendations we've gotten, is that a big enough removal of property that it would trigger some kind of process that we need to be aware of? Those are my 2 questions about that.
Yeah, I would, the difficulty about the pathway project is we don't know which side of the bank is the best side to put that pathway on. Largely because it's so full of debris and hazardous fuels, it's difficult to know how much of the bank is actually usable for developing a pathway. So taking Shady Brook out of the boundary from the pathway point of view could or could not impact our ability to put in a pathway. But I will say, if Shady Brook is taken out, the city can still help build that pathway if we want to move forward with that project. We just wouldn't use urban renewal funds to do so. It would just fall outside of the urban renewal boundary.
So then it would be important to know what funds we could use for it, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. You know, and this is something that I would like to ask our attorney tomorrow, or our specialist out of Portland, around taking out Shady Brook. I believe since we're taking out a piece of property, rather than putting one in, it would actually impact the financials in such a way where there would be less assessed value, though minuscule compared to the whole thing. So I think we'd be able to do a one-time, one piece of property takeout. But I will reserve a full answer of that until tomorrow.
Great. Counselor Clark?
Yeah, just following up, is there a scenario in which having Shady Brook within urban renewal could help provide resources that would help it remain affordable housing, as opposed to contributing to it becoming not affordable housing? And what would that look like?
Yeah, so where urban renewal plays a role in helping support affordable housing in communities is kind of twofold. It is one, urban renewal can help put incentive programs in place to attract affordable housing development. And to clarify, when we're speaking about affordable housing, we're talking about it costs less than 30% of somebody's gross pay if they're making less than 80% of the area median income. The second power of urban renewal is when we work with a private property owner and we do an urban renewal project on that property owner's behalf, what we can do is we can place, well, with agreement of the property owner, we place a restriction on the deed. And that deed can come with a requirement that this is affordable housing per the definition of affordable housing for X number of years. Other benefits can be urban renewal money could be spent on properties, so to help purchase a property, or to put investments in. I do think Neria's letter, their concern is, does urban renewal help increase the price of the property, which can lead to gentrification, which can then lead to displacement. So it can go both ways. And I do want to share that we've had a couple emails sent in for written feedback on the TURA plan, on the urban renewal plan. They have been so far included in the agenda packet for tomorrow night. We will keep including them as we receive them. We received another one from Coalición Fortaleza this afternoon. And we will have a chance on one of our agenda items tomorrow night to also use that as part of the public feedback if City Council would like to discuss or respond or make changes.
Thank you.
I'm muted. So is that do we have those letters already? Do we have those letters yet?
And I will go ahead and send out the latest version of the agenda packet after tonight's meeting. It should be also fully updated on our website, and then we will update it again tomorrow around noon with anything else that we've received.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah. Okay, are there any other questions? Did you want to go through the options anymore before I open up questions? Okay, are there any questions about options? All right, so I guess we'll go ahead and start taking speaker request forms. Lucero, do you have speaker request forms?
Yes, Mayor, we received one from Nidia Garcia.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and start with the request forms that we have, and then I'll look to the attendees for adding them to the discussion. So let's bring Nidia forward, and Nidia, please state your name and city for the record, and then you have 5 minutes. Nidia, you're muted. And just to let everybody know, I am going to let everybody know when there is 1 minute left in their time. So I'm going to interrupt you with a 1 minute warning. Nidia, you're still muted.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay. You're good to go.
Let me see here. Well, thank you again for your time on this evening that is celebrated by some for different reasons. I just wanted to share some of the things that I emailed you all about the things that kind of I brought, that I'm concerned about. So I'm just going to go ahead and read them. So some suggestions that I had for the language of the plan was to be specific on the fact that the communities that were the most impacted and continue to be left out in the recovery process are working class, low income folks with fixed income, Latinos, Indigenous, folks that speak other languages other than English, senior citizens, etc. I would also like to add that it feels important in some of these goals to make sure that access to funding and support is listed in the goals. Sorry, it's like end of the day, that information can be listed in English and Spanish and distributed more than just on an online platform, because not everybody has access to computers or accesses the internet. And I think we forget that some folks don't have smartphones. So just bringing that to our awareness. I'd also, under letter A, encourage you all to work with community-based organizations, particularly that serve the populations that tend to be the most left out in urban renewal processes. Also, under letter D, I'd like to flag the importance of including a system of dissemination of information that includes the needs of deaf and blind folks. In terms of, when we're considering making warning systems to support the safe evacuation of all of the residents of Talent. For the housing, on page 9 for the Affordable Housing Incentive Program, I would like to add that affordable housing needs to be specific with actual numbers, which I thank you, Jordan, I heard you list that tonight. But we always want to ask affordable for who, is it affordable for Elon Musk? Is it affordable for, a single mom that's working minimum wage and has, 3 kids? So just getting more and more specific with that, to avoid just a simple checklist about what affordable means. It's really important because this will help us prevent gentrification. And historically, urban renewal has always had racist and classist impacts for folks of color and poor folks. You can look up the redlining history in the Bay Area and what they did in San Francisco. It's not an opinion, it's a fact. And for the Economic Development Incentive Program, just want to uplift the need for special programs that ensure that that business owners of color get the extra support and incentives that they need to access these funding opportunities. Something as easy as language barrier can keep folks from even knowing that these programs exist, which continues to, disproportionately impact our business owners of color. For the restoration project, just encouraging
1 minute.
1 minute, thank you. Just encouraging you all to work with the tribes or folks who are particularly informed on native species of the area, so that we're not putting invasives in there or we're not putting adornment plants that are water intensive. We need to be bringing back the indigenous native species to create the resilience that we need to survive and adapt to the changing weathers. And I believe that I believe that's it. I just really want to thank you all for considering our comments, and again, just remind you all to consider ways in which to help preserve the last remaining naturally occurring affordable housing neighborhood that is Shady Brook on Talent Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you, Nydia. Hey, Jordan, I want to ask you a quick question that I was going to ask earlier, and it dropped off my radar. And that is, Nydia just, or the comments that are coming from Coalition Fortaleza were just read to us, and they and submitted by Nydia. If we were to make like just some language amendments, is that something we can do before, if the council decides on either option 1 or 2? Is that something that can be done before the 24th without impacting a bunch of stuff?
Yes, what we'll do at tomorrow night's council meeting is discuss which changes council would like to see. So you could say, you know, we'd like to amend the plan to include the definition of affordable housing, to include a description of actual intent and values as it pertains to vulnerable populations, whatever that category may be. And then just by motion, amend the plan in that way, and we can still pass it to the resolution. And what we'll do as staff is just work on amending the plans with those changes at council's direction.
I'm glad we asked that question tonight, because I think for folks that are here, you know, that knowing that that's a possibility, they might make, you know, they might submit comments to that end as well. So thanks so much for taking my question. So let's go ahead and go to the attendees. I saw Chris Luzz's hand up first, then we'll go to Daniel Wise. So if we can bring Chris forward, and Chris, please state your name and city for the record.
My name is Chris Luz. Can you hear me okay? I live in the city of Phoenix. I'm part of the Phoenix Talent School District, the county, and also the fire district. First of all, I'd really love to see more discussion about the details tonight before the public comments tomorrow night, so that the public can be informed as to how you guys feel about the comments and the letters that were submitted. But bottom line, Jackson County, the fire district, and Talent Phoenix School District are universally opposed to the plan as proposed. It tells you something, guys. They're all opposed to it. Why are they opposed to it? They're opposed to it because no other urban renewal plan in the history of urban renewal plans has ever been proposed, such as this one here. We're taking tax money as front-loaded. Money that should be going to the fire department in the county is being taken by the city of Talent, and those monies are lost because of the Almeda fire. There is when the school district says they're against it because of that, not because it's a typical urban renewal plan, because it's not typical. Number 3, an easy solution is go out for a general obligation bond. Use the money that you are about to put into urban renewal to at least partially fund a general obligation bond. You'll have the people of Talent funding Talent projects. The general obligation bond is paid for by Talent residents. It funds your recovery instead of asking others to foot the bill, like the county, the fire district, and the school district. Number 4, there are some very important points that you guys missed and you didn't discuss tonight. Important points from the school district, and they mentioned that the school district believes the proposal or the plan is happening too soon. Quite obvious. But more importantly, and you guys didn't even touch on this, the Phoenix Talent School District notes that fire and police are very important to them, and they're worried about the Turo plan reducing police and fire department funding. What could be more important to your voters and to the Phoenix Talent School District than them worrying about money being taken from police and fire? You didn't even talk about it tonight, guys. Please discuss it. Talk about it amongst yourselves so the public can hear about how you feel about that. There are other items that the county proposed or put out there that you didn't talk about also. Very important. The draft plan has the effect of locking in the losses to property tax revenue suffered by the county and the fire district. It never gets mentioned. It never got mentioned in the first iteration. It's not being mentioned tonight. You got to talk about how they feel about the loss of revenue due to the Almeda fire, and not just skip over it. What if a district was taking money from the city of Talent, Councilor Panamaroth, and they came into you guys and we're taking $1 million or $2 million or $3 million from you to pay for projects that they want to fund outside
Chris, Mr. Les, I'm
Yes,
gonna let you continue, but I'm gonna ask you to refrain from direct comments to council. It's disrespectful. And I don't want to call you off the microphone. So
Thank
go, your time is still preserved. Please continue.
no disrespect intended, but one of the council members mentioned that earlier tonight about the equity and funding. Secondly, by the county, they say the plan will not provide revenue that the taxing entities have relied upon to fund critical services. You never touched upon that tonight. Let the public know how you feel about their comment about you guys taking money that's needed for critical services. They say the plan will leave taxing districts no option but to reduce service levels. Never talked about tonight.
1 minute.
Okay, how important is the reduction of service levels by the fire department to the citizens of Talent and Phoenix and the county? You never touched upon it. Talk about tonight before the public comments tomorrow night. Almost there. Now, you can have an executive session, as you know, Madam Mayor, about litigation without having it be an executive session. And lastly, the writings on the wall. The fire department district is going to put you guys into litigation if you pass the plan as it is proposed. You'll be fighting that litigation for a long, long time. Please change the plan, listen to the districts, do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Luz. All right, Daniel Wise, please come forward and state your name and city for the record.
Gotta figure out which button to hit. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're there.
All right, perfect. So I will echo just one thing of what Mr. Luz just said, and that is, it is so difficult to speak into a vacuum, and we have no idea really where you as counselors stand on any of this. So we're not having a dialogue, we're having a one-way input thing. So it would be wonderful if at some point early on in the meeting tomorrow, perhaps before public testimony, to kind of do a straw poll, get a feel of where each of you stand on that. So I know who I'm talking to and whom I'm trying to convince one way or the other. So most of my points today are regarding clarification. I will be submitting comments in written form and possibly testifying tomorrow night. One is just a straightforward question. I'm a little confused because some people say a Zoom meeting tomorrow and some people say it's an in-person meeting at Town Hall. And I'd really like to know where to show up. So if you can answer that at the end of my comments, I'd appreciate it. Regarding the feedback you got today from the agencies, my understanding from reading both the fire department and the county and maybe the school district letters is when they say delay a year, they may be referring to January 2024 values, not January 2023 values. And I really think that should be clarified. 2024 values, my understanding is implementation couldn't happen until October 10th of 24 to make that true. So again, a piece of clarification, and frankly, that would be my recommendation to take advantage of this year's building. And then secondly is just a kind of a general comment that I've heard a few comments that, you know, one in particular regarding that the fire district just submitted their comments today and didn't really give you a chance to review them. I just like to say that's self-imposed because this meeting was like, it didn't have to be at the deadline for submission of comments. It could have been a week later. It's because of this election and trying to get it on the ballot. So the timing issues and the tightness of the timing are problematic and don't really give an opportunity for digestion and discussion. And that's all I have today.
One second, I'm just shutting off my timer here. Okay, thank you. We have Derek Manzi. Please come forward, and Mr. Wise, if you'll take your hand down. And then Mr. Manzi, please come forward and state your name and city for the record.
Derek Banzi, Talent. I'm just curious as to why it was the same case last time around. I spoke to several people with the fire district, and there's not any communication with them with regards to kind of being at the table with regards to the proposed urban renewal, either last time around or this time around. It feels like to me that there should be more involvement with them. I mean, they are our fire department, and why they're not very much involved in the consulting process for the building out of this plan, considering that you need or should at least want their approval for the plan overall. It kind of seems like very similar to the West Valley View process, that the fire department, police department weren't really consulted along the way. They were just kind of like, here's our plan. This is what we're going to do. You can chime in on it now, but it's going to happen. So I don't feel like Talent is being a good neighbor in the sense of getting active involvement from these other districts or departments along the way. I think we can do a better job of that. And then also to speak on these substantial amendments, if we do end up moving forward with this urban renewal plan, I would hope that we would put that language in there that it would require a vote to approve by the residents of a substantial amendment based on the plan laid out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manzi. Are there any other comments from the attendees? All right, Jordan?
Oops, yeah, Mayor, if you don't mind, Mr. Wise did ask a clarification question for tomorrow night's meeting, and I'd just love to give that for everyone who's in the audience tonight. Tomorrow is an in-person meeting at the old town hall. So that's 206 East Main Street, that the old white school building with the bell tower is where the meeting tomorrow night will be. I'm going to try to have Elaine and Nick on via Zoom since they are up in the Portland area, just with me because we've learned that the audio is so bad, but I'm hoping to have them on hand for questions.
Thank you. Any other? All right. It looks like then, let me just get to the agenda, but I think we're at the end of it.
Mayor, before you do, Lucido, I'd love to do a quick check. Is anyone in the community viewing session that would be interested in asking a question or making a comment?
No, we don't have no one.
Okay, so with that, the next item on the agenda is written communications. There's a letter on the record from Chris Luz. And the next item on the agenda is 6, adjourn. We will adjourn this meeting at 6:09. Thank you, everybody.
Great. Thank you all.